Hello everyone, and welcome to this special session we've got on sleep, performance and endurance racing. My name's Tim, I'm an endurance athlete and coach, and this year I'm preparing for UTMB, one of the most challenging ultra-distance mountain races in the world. Now, we all know that obviously training, nutrition, kit choices, that all gets a lot of attention in our ultra race preparation, but sleep is often underestimated. Yet really it's one of the most powerful tools we have for performance, resilience and our decision making. So especially when that fatigue starts to set in and the mountains are demanding our full attention. So that's why today I'm joined by Chloe, who's our Team HP3 specialist in chronobiology and sleep coaching. And she works with endurance athletes to help them perform at their best, even when the clock, the terrain and the race may be working against them. So, Chloe, before we get into some of the questions we've got, could you give us maybe a quick introduction to your background, the work you do with athletes, and explain how sleep coaching can really make a difference in events like something like UTMB?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Tim. So just to introduce myself, I have just finished my PhD in Liverpool, where I've been more specifically looking at sleep restriction, how it affects performance, both cognitive and physical, and also looking at chronobiology, so how time of day affects certain factors. As Tim said, I've been working with HP3 to help athletes with sleep strategies, whether that be napping, pre-race preparation, post-race recovery, and sort of during the race, what people can implement to sort of alleviate the effects of sleep loss. As we know that during these multi-day races, it's inevitable that we're going to experience sleep loss. So it's how we can best combat that and, sort of make sure that our performance is not affected when we train so hard to sort of get these PBs, finish these races. It's a crucial factor.
Yeah. So, we think about, nutrition particularly and hydration in terms of that sort of performance affecting, but how does then sleep actually affect our performance in these long ultra events?
Yeah, so like you say, sleep is a pillar of health. We need it just to function day to day. And when we do these races and put our body under more stress and strain, it's even more crucial. We know even after one night of sleep loss, we can have extreme detriments. They are typically on cognitive function first, opposed to physical performance. So it might be sort of our response time, our accuracy, our mood state might be impaired first. But we know that as that goes over more days and accumulates, everything does start to be impaired, as well as sort of the physical performance, and even more so our aerobic capacity, so in these endurance-based sports. So yeah, it can affect a whole host of symptoms and factors.
So yeah, so it's not actually even just necessarily performance, but it's also safety as well, isn't it? Because, for a lot of these either multi-day ultras or even just long single stage where, like you're saying, kind of going through that maybe a second night is, that decision making, having to navigate and maybe making errors with navigating and yeah, our kind of risk assessment in the mountains, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So we want to think about ways that we can try and maybe mitigate some of these risks. And one of the ideas that gets talked about is sleep banking, isn't it? So before we think about the race itself, let's maybe take it back a step. And so what can we be doing in the build up towards an event, and how does that actually work? And does it really work? Can you actually bank sleep?
Yeah, so sleep banking, like you say, it's quite a common phrase we use now, but it is sort of the same as sleep extension. So it's where we will want to extend the total amount of sleep in a 24-hour period. So we'll typically want to look at doing this in the 7 days before a race. However, so many factors come into this. So are you going to be at home? Are you going to be in an unfamiliar new environment, for example, a hotel? Are you going to be traveling during the race, before the race in order to get to the race location? Is there going to be a time zone transition? Do you need to try and align your body clock? So there's a lot of things that we need to sort of think about in the prep for a race, not just simply we need to optimize sleep, because all of these factors can obviously cause our circadian rhythm to not be aligned and have a lot of effects. And we don't want to be going into a race restricted, because we're already making ourselves obviously have these impairments. We're going to be going in not at our sort of top form. So like I say, sort of the 7 days before, we want to increase the sleep, and we want to make sure this isn't too drastic that it's going to disrupt the sleep. Because I know before someone said to me, oh, I've been told to go to bed an hour earlier in the week before, but I'm now waking up so early that I'm waking a lot during the night. So it kind of has the reverse effect. And this is, again, individual. A lot of people can adapt the sleep quite easily, and others are very sensitive. So it's about how that individual responds. So I'd say if you are sensitive, even 10 minutes a night, so advance bedtime by 10 minutes and delay it by 10 minutes when you wake, and increase that over the 7 nights, and you'll gradually work up to maybe 30 or 45 minutes greater per night. However, if maybe extending the nocturnal sleep episode doesn't help, we can have naps. So we can sleep in the middle of the day, because this again just increases that sleep that we get in the 24-hour period, and it's sort of the same achievement. We're just increasing the sleep in the day opposed to at night. I wouldn't say that we can offset sleep loss and the effects of it. Unfortunately, it's not a natural thing to do. But we can definitely do things like the sleep extension, this preparation pre-race, to sort of help the body acclimatise and, you know, alleviate the effects that it has.
That's interesting you're saying about just those little increases, kind of, rather than saying, right, let's go to bed 2 hours earlier than usual, or try and sleep in for 2 hours. But what about the napping though? Because again, that gets a lot of attention regarding, you know, when should you nap, how long you should nap for. I mean, I know what I'm like. If I fall asleep in the middle of the day, I just feel groggy and horrible and almost wish I hadn't had the nap. But is there that kind of, you know, is there a sweet spot in terms of time? You know, I've heard about maybe trying to have a cup of coffee, then have a nap, so the caffeine kind of kicks in and wakes you up afterwards. What about those kind of ideas?
Yeah, so there's been a term kind of thrown around called a nappuccino, which is where you, like you say, have a coffee before a short bout of sleep, and then when you wake up, the effects will kick in. So this sort of strategy, definitely trial it before. It might not work for everyone. Some people are a lot more sensitive to caffeine than others. But what you want to make sure with this is that if you are doing this strategy, it's only a short nap. It's 10 to 20 minutes. So you're not having sort of the caffeine kicking in and waking you up. You want to have the effects as you're waking up, and that sort of increase in alertness. When you discuss the sort of grogginess that you have from a nap, this is what we call sleep inertia. So you might feel disorientated, your cognition might be impaired, and obviously we don't want this during a race. We don't want to wake up and feel spaced out and quite fatigued and lethargic, but this is normally paired with longer naps. So when we go over this 20-30 minute duration of a nap, we have more opportunity to enter deeper stages of sleep, and this is paired with this groggy feeling. And then again, with the timing of a nap, you want to try and have it in the day when we have a drop in temperature and a drop in alertness. So it sort of helps our body fall to sleep, makes it easier to stay asleep. This is normally called the post-lunch dip, and it's around 1 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So it sort of best accommodates our body to sleep in that window. So yeah, if you want a nap, I definitely suggest it then, rather than sort of mid-morning or late at night, where it might impair that nighttime sleep episode.
Yeah, so our classic siesta type.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then in terms of that sort of helping sleep, there's I see it a lot on my social medias, and I'm sure a lot of athletes do, because there's more and more of these kind of supplement products coming out there that are supposed to help with your sleep. You know, magnesium's getting a lot of attention. You don't really get it in the UK, but more the kind of American athletes with like melatonin and other kind of herbal supplements. Now, generally speaking, from a nutrition point of view, we're very much a kind of food first approach. But is there any evidence to kind of support that, to help athletes if they are struggling with sleep in the build up to a race?
So I'd say there's definitely a lack of evidence surrounding sleep supplements. I wouldn't sort of strongly endorse anything at the point we're at in research at the minute. I have done some research myself on zinc magnesium, and we didn't see any benefit on performance. But again, it depends on the exercise type, the individual. And I'd say people typically see more benefit when they are maybe deficient in these minerals and vitamins. We see it in typically maybe ill populations where there's massive benefits, and then sort of the social media is drawing this information from ill populations that doesn't replicate healthy individuals and saying this is going to help you, there's going to be loads of benefits. So it's really mindful where this sort of information comes from. But I would say if you take a supplement, there's no side effects and it works for you, don't stop it. We know there's a lot of things with the sort of psychological side of taking things. So yeah, I definitely say if you currently take something and it helps you, there's no side effects, keep taking it. But I wouldn't say dive into going and buying all these supplements and spending all this money, because there is not a sort of strong enough backing where we currently are.
Maybe just a good bit of dark chocolate for the magnesium then.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we're now sort of getting closer to, you know, race day. And some of the kind of final preparations, which, okay, it's going to be very individualized, as you mentioned there, about, you know, when are you traveling to an event? You know, you arrive in the day before, 2 days before, and how that then needs to be factored in. And you mentioned about time zones. And but if it's, you know, a local race, not traveling too far or arriving nice and early, you know, what can we do in those final, I suppose, 24, 48 hours? Maybe we've been banking a bit of sleep or a little bit of a sleep extension. A lot of European races will start in the evening. So it's a question of, you know, what are you doing for that day of the race as well? So what kind of strategies can people think about there?
Yeah, of course. So in sort of the nights pre, obviously, like you said, ensuring you're extending your sleep, just generally prioritizing sleep and rest. So sort of having a bedtime routine, maybe an hour before, where you start to sort of de-wind and relax your body. Not engage in anything stressful. So try and avoid work-related tasks in the lead up to a race, maybe on the day or a few days before. Just so we're not getting ourselves stressed and adding to sort of the nerves pre-race. Obviously, afternoon naps, if you want to take a nap, you've tried them before and they work for you, they can be great, especially if you've got that sort of later start time, just to offset the fatigue. And another thing that I'd really stress is, obviously, we want to rest and optimize rest and recovery before we're going into these multi-day races, but don't be completely resting where you're not doing anything. Some light movement just to keep the body going. If we lie around, we typically feel a lot more lethargic. So it's about keeping them energy levels high and maintained. And also not trying to just run off sugar and caffeine. Obviously, when we take these maybe gels or caffeine gums and different things as these quick fixes, if we take them on the day off, we might spike and crash by the time it comes to sort of the 5:45 start time. So it's just being mindful of also nutrition and maybe easing it across the day, and not overloading that body. So when it comes to that time of the day, we're crashed, we're tired, we're over caffeinated, and the last thing we want to do is go and start a multi-day race. So yeah, quite a few different factors to say there, but really just prioritizing rest, ensuring you've got a good bedtime routine, not overdoing it and sort of the caffeine and sugars, and reducing that overall stress stimulus to the body.
So would you be going back to, you know, you mentioned about the grogginess if you try and nap for too long. So would you have a longer nap on, you know, if you got a, so okay, referencing UTMB, a sort of traditionally a 6 p.m. start, it's a 5:45 this year because of a course change. Other races, maybe more like a 11 p.m. start. So, you know, do you go for a longer afternoon nap to kind of compensate, or do you stick with that shorter nap duration that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I think it probably depends on your strategy for the race, whether you're going to be someone who's trying to go all out and not sleep at all, so sort of more the 24, 30 hour, or whether you're going to be going for more than one night. Obviously, if you're going for more than one night, you're going to maybe have opportunities to sleep throughout, whereas if you're just going all out, total sleep deprivation, you want to try and optimize that sleep pre-race as much as possible. I do think for anyone going in sleep deprivation, you probably want to be going for more than 60 to 90 minutes, because if you time this at, say, 1 p.m. in the afternoon, you've still got sufficient time post-nap to sort of recover from that grogginess before you get into the race start line. It normally takes around 45 to 60 minutes to feel sort of that grogginess going away. So that should give you enough time, and then you should be fine for the race start. So I'd sort of try and optimize that time while you have it.
Sounds good. So then we want to think about that sort of first night. So, the first night's unavoidable for these kind of late afternoon, evening starts, like I say, the kind of 6 p.m. starts or the kind of 11 p.m. starts for a lot of these races. So we kind of get to that, as you mentioned, that sort of, well, that circadian drop is that sort of 1, 2, 3 in the morning, isn't it? Where our body's kind of just going, what are you doing still running? We should be asleep. So what can we do to kind of stay mentally sharp during those early hours?
Yeah, so we do typically call that time sort of the devil hours, where it's, yeah, like you say, you shouldn't be awake. What are you doing? Go to sleep. So things start to become impaired around this time. So obviously nutrition, hydration, making sure that's on point. Like I said before, trying to avoid any crashes in terms of blood sugar levels and caffeine. We know that our body runs off light dark cycles, so light exposure can be really helpful to sort of give our body that cue. We need to stay awake, don't go to sleep. So that might be things like head torches or bright lights sort of surrounding you, that's your eyes are seeing the light, it's keeping you away, it's stopping the melatonin secreting, that sort of sleepy hormone. I know a lot of people also use sort of cold water, so splash in the face to keep themselves stimulated, and also mental techniques. So I know a lot of people that sort of block the race. So I've got to get to this checkpoint by this time, sort of keeping yourself mentally occupied, because that is normally the first thing to go. So giving yourself sort of these challenges and things to think about. I'd say there are a few things that I'd go off. But again, it's very dependent on the individual. Some people can really offset sleep loss, and others are a lot more sensitive.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I certainly reach for the caffeine, and yeah, certainly keeping the sugars flowing, but even just things like very, very strong mints and those type of things, just to kind of give myself a bit of a wake up call. Very strong sort of menthol type stuff, even just clear the sinuses.
Yeah.
Again, helps me kind of wake up. Is there any actual sort of evidence around those type of things?
I'm not too sure. What came to mind when you said that actually was a lot of people I know chew gum as sort of something to occupy them. Obviously it's not anything that they're having to digest and cause any sort of gut problems, but it's sort of something to, I suppose the chewing action is keeping them thinking about something. With the menthol, I'm not 100%. I know, like you say, it can clear sort of the sinuses and things, but I couldn't say scientifically if I know that matches to anything with keeping that alertness. And yeah.
Well, we'll have to do a study on that one, or see whether I'm just a unique one on that one.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so we kind of get through that first night, and a lot of people find they can go through the first night, and dawn comes along, the light comes, as you mentioned, our eyes absorb that light, and we kind of realize, okay, we're good to go. And I've certainly felt that numerous times racing, that as soon as that dawn comes along, it's almost like we start all over again, and you've got this kind of new energy. But then if you are pushing into that second night, when it then starts to get dark again, what are some of the maybe additional physiological and psychological demands we're going to be feeling in that second night?
Yeah, so as sort of the sleep loss accumulates and becomes consecutive days, nights, we're just going to see things get a lot more heightened. So sort of like we said before about navigation, decision making might be quite impulsive, very hypersensitive to certain situations. So maybe if a plan doesn't go ahead or as accordingly as planned, it might really stress an individual out. So I'd say these sort of factors, the psychological side becomes very, very heightened. And then sort of our capacity, we might perceive pain a lot more, so a lot more muscle soreness, and just overall difficulty with a task. So yeah, sort of remembering again that both the cognitive and the physical side are going to be impaired, but it's probably unfortunately going to be a lot more than what you've experienced on that first night.
So then I suppose we've got to make some decisions then as to, do we take a sleep? Because often these races or multi-day races, you've got opportunities to take a sleep. So when do you plan that for? Do you bank sleep in the first night in preparation for that second night, or do we just try go through to the second night when we're going to be really tired and we've got a greater opportunity to maybe fall asleep?
Yeah, of course. So I'd say definitely plan in your rests. I wouldn't just take them ad hoc or when you feel bad. I know some people will get to the point where they're hallucinating and falling over and think, I better have a sleep.
Yeah.
You're definitely best to prepare your body for a sleep and prep for one. Even little things, again, like going back to the caffeine, you might take on a lot of caffeine and then want to sleep within 20 minutes later and you can't fall asleep. So it's around preparing everything that aligns closely together.
Mm.
Um, on the first and second night, it's a difficult one. Some people just want to get through the first night, like you say, and just power through. It sort of depends on you, an individual. I suppose your experience with multi-day races, whether it's your first one or you've done 10, and sort
Yeah.
of how you deal with it. If, for example, you do go through the first night though, and you are looking at sort of 2 consecutive nights of racing, I definitely say trying to sleep that following afternoon. So on the second daytime, sort of in
Mm.
that post-lunch dip zone. And then when we want to sleep during the night, maybe just shorter sleeps, just to sort of give them boost and alertness. So sort of 10, 20, maximum 30 minutes, ensuring they're in safe locations. So sort of checkpoints or anywhere where you're not in any danger, just because your sort of decision making will definitely be impaired. So that's why the preparation is also great. Maybe pick out checkpoints where you're going to sleep. Again, during the night in sort of that 2 to 4 a.m, we again see drops in alertness, drops in temperature. So it's also another good time to sort of schedule these sleeps.
So I'll say it's really kind of, planning ahead. Where am I going to be at that time of day
Yeah.
where I'm more likely to be successful with naps? Because I've had that from athletes in the past where they've tried to have a sleep at a certain time of day, but they've laid down and 30 minutes later they're still awake and they've lost 30 minutes of racing and not really gained anything for it. So yeah, just that planning is important, and obviously that depends on which race you're doing, obviously the timings of that race, the aid stations, life bases, or whether it is more of a trail nap where you are going to have to find somewhere safe on the trail to have a lie down, and what that all involves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was going to say, sorry, just to touch on your previous point, quite interesting where you said about athlete obviously preparing to sleep but can't sleep. I know that is something that's very common in a race because your mind's on overdrive and you're thinking, I'm stopping, I don't want to stop, I want to keep going. What I would definitely say to athletes in that situation, if you can't sleep, do not stress about it. Sometimes there's too much overstimulation in our brain to sort of shut off and go to sleep. But we are starting to see in some research now that even just a rest period, so not necessarily falling asleep, can be just as beneficial sort of to restore these cognitive functions. So whether you simply just close your eyes, maybe even put some calming music on or something relaxing, or you even just shut out noise altogether and put some earbuds in and sort of de-stimulate the environment and allow our body to calm down and desensitize, that might still allow you to restore functions to keep going again. So it's not always necessarily, I haven't slept, I've not recovered. We can sometimes get it in just them sort of rest and stop moments.
Yeah, so I suppose that comes back to the general life, thinking about sleeping, and people who then struggle and they get more and more wound up about the fact that they're not sleeping.
Yeah.
And that creates more problems in itself, whereas actually just lying down, you're still getting benefit from just lying down and resting, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So then fine, we get through the second night, maybe we've had some sleep monsters and some hallucinations, but we get to that finish line, and then we're having a chat just before we were recording about the kind of the recovery afterwards, and actually this can be quite a extended and a longer period of disruption than I actually appreciated in our pre-recording chat. So do you want to just tell me a little bit more about how long it can take for our sleep to normalize after an event like this? And we know obviously sleep is a huge part of our recovery process. So what can we do to try and help with that in that initial recovery post-race?
Yeah, of course. So again, going back to sort of that individual response, some people are extremely sensitive after a race and it can take a very long time to recover. Some people might recover in 5 to 7 days. It's completely different. What I would say is the longer and the more sleep loss you have, the longer it's obviously going to take to recover. And it's maybe just ensuring that when you finish the race, obviously the first maybe 1-2 nights, you can oversleep, you can sleep extend and try and get back some of that sleep lost. But sort of by the third night, we don't want to be excessively sleeping. We want to try and get back to that sleep routine and sort of get our circadian rhythm back in its normal flow, its normal rhythm, and start to try and align things how they were pre-race. If we keep having random sort of bedtimes and wake times, it's going to just further desynchronize the body and not allow us to recover. So yeah, sort of the first few nights, allow yourself to oversleep, but after that, try and go back to what you typically would, maybe 10 p.m. bedtime, 7 a.m. rising, and try and adapt that. If you still feel extremely fatigued in the day, have a midday nap, absolutely fine, but just try and ensure that you're not completely out of routine, because the longer you do that, the harder it is to kind of get back to where you were before and sort of let the muscle recover, the immune function, and all the factors.
That's really interesting, because again, we know that being, trying to be in bed and trying to sleep for too long can actually be negative as well, and that's not something that maybe people appreciate enough. So then, sort of final question then really is, is this something that we can actually train? If somebody is used to doing night shifts, for example, or they've got young children and used to having very disrupted sleep, is that something that can be a skill that's learned and developed? Is it worth practicing this in training? And I think there's a real tricky point about, do you go out and do some overnight runs or overnight training, and where's the trade-off between the benefit of learning this versus the trade-off in terms of the negative consequences? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, something I'm asked very often. So in terms of can you train your body, I would say no. It is not a normal thing to be sleep deprived. Unfortunately, there's many situations where it happens, like you've said, and it is one of them things, unfortunately. But it's all about learning strategies we can implement to alleviate it when we do experience it, and hopefully only in acute bouts. Obviously, when it becomes chronic, it can lead to a lot more serious effects, but in these sort of acute phases with competitions and training, it's more about learning how to adapt, how your body responds, and what you can implement. In terms of sort of prepping for it and maybe simulating these experiences, I would say don't do anything too extreme. Don't go and try and replicate a 3-day multi-race. The sort of side effects are just not worth it, and will definitely affect your training. I would say you could maybe mix up your training. So if you typically train early morning, maybe start training at different times of day, after work in an evening when you're maybe a bit more fatigued, and making your body experience that. That could really be of benefit. And then maybe if there's some events pre-big race that you can maybe trial things at, that might also be an option. But yeah, it's sort of trial and error and finding that happy balance of not doing something too extreme it's going to impair your sort of training pre-race, but also making sure that you prepare well enough that you're not doing something for the first time during a multi-day race.
Sounds good. Cool. Okay, well, thank you very much, Chloe. I think that's been really insightful, and hopefully getting a lot of people thinking about their sleep in specific preparation and during maybe some of these events that they can hopefully put into practice straight away. And yeah, certainly this has just reinforced the point that it's not sleep isn't just something that you hope is going to be okay in the build up towards a race, or something you'll just deal with in the moment of a race. It's something that we can really plan for, and then use as a performance advantage. So yeah, obviously, whether this is for UTMB like I've got coming up, maybe it's your first ultra. I know you spoke to one of my athletes the other day about preparing for their first 100 miler. If you're going to be doing something which is going to be pushing you through the night, these are lessons that are worth carrying through into our preparation. So Chloe, how can people maybe get in touch with you, and if they want to have a more personalized approach to their sleep preparation and have a conversation with you, what can they do?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Tim. So yeah, if you are preparing for a race, even if you're in the middle of a season and you're thinking of things you can maybe implement to improve your sleep, or you've even had previous experiences that weren't very pleasant during a race, there's definitely things that we can work on a one-to-one basis, sort of individual to you, that are practical, but also evidence-based recommendations that we can tailor to sort of a specific event, and sort of help you prepare, not just nutrition, coaching, etc., but all factors, and obviously ensure that you are prepared as best as possible. So if you would like to reach out to me, I think Tim might provided a link, but you can also go directly to Tim or via the website. And just to remember that sleep is a really important pillar of health. It is often overlooked, but it has a massive effect on all factors, unfortunately. So it's something that we really need to consider moving forward, in the applied setting especially.
Absolutely. And as you just said there, it's one of our key pillars of health. So yes, we focused on race preparation here, but it might also be looking at sleep problems in day-to-day life, as it were. So those are, again, I know areas that you've helped some of our athletes with in the past.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your time today. So like I say, the links will be down below. So if you want to get in touch and personalize your sleep preparation and your sleep strategies, give us a shout and get in touch with Chloe. Thanks very much. See you later.